The message arrived simultaneously on every communication device in Council space, not through official channels, not through government systems. It bypassed every security protocol and appeared directly on personal communicators, entertainment screens, and public displays across 846 different worlds. President Hyunwoo's face filled billions of screens. He sat at a simple desk with the flag of Earth behind him. When he spoke, his words were translated into every language in the galaxy. "Citizens of the Galactic Council," he began, "my name is Hyunwoo, President of United Earth. I speak to you now not as enemies but as fellow beings who deserve to know the truth. Your leaders tell you that humanity is dangerous, that we are aggressive, that we must be controlled for the good of the galaxy. I want you to know our side of this story." The transmission showed footage of first contact. Humans greeting council ships with open arms, humans signing treaties, humans following every law and regulation. Then it showed the council's demands. The threats. The ultimatum. "We broke no laws," Hyunwoo said. "We built colonies in empty systems that no one else wanted. We defended ourselves when threatened. We refused to surrender our freedom just because it made your leaders uncomfortable, and for this they sent 2,000 ships to attack our home." The footage switched to the battle, but not the version the Council had released. This showed the full picture. The Council fleet arriving to threaten civilians, the human military defending their families, the Council's retreat after realizing they could not win. "We did not start this war," Hyunwoo continued, "but we will finish it. Now your leaders are preparing another fleet. 30,000 ships this time. They plan to blockade Earth and starve us into submission. But we make you this offer. You do not have to participate. Any species that withdraws from this conflict will be welcomed as neutral. Any species that chooses to ally with humanity will receive our protection and our technology. And any species that continues to threaten our freedom will learn what happens when you back humans into a corner." He leaned forward, his expression serious but not angry. "We do not want to rule you. We do not want to conquer you. We simply want to be left alone to live our lives in peace. The choice is yours. Not your leader's choice. Yours. Think carefully about whether this war is worth fighting for." The transmission ended. Within hours, 42 more species announced they were withdrawing from the Council's military coalition. Small species mostly. Species that had been bullied and threatened for decades. Species that saw in humanity a chance for real change. On Vraxis Prime, the homeworld of the former High Chancellor, workers in the military shipyards received anonymous messages. Detailed specifications for human weapons, manufacturing processes, design philosophies. The messages included a note. "Your leaders send you to die while they live in luxury. Perhaps it is time for change." Similar messages went out across Council space, to factory workers, to soldiers, to ordinary citizens tired of endless demands from distant leaders who never faced consequences for their decisions. Commander Dayun watched the results from her operations center on Earth. Her special operations teams had spent 3 months preparing for this moment. They had infiltrated communication networks. They had made contact with resistance movements. They had identified key targets for information warfare. Team 3 reports success on Corthan Prime, one of her officers said. They've exposed the corruption files. Government officials taking bribes. Military officers selling supplies. The population is not happy. Team 7 has made contact with the Pelleran Union, another officer reported. Ambassador Silrath wants to formalize an alliance. She's bringing 20 species with her. Dayun nodded. This was going better than expected. The Council had spent 300 years maintaining order through fear and tradition. But they had never faced an enemy that understood information warfare. Humans had been using propaganda, psychological operations, and intelligence gathering since ancient times. The Council didn't even have a word for most of these concepts. "Ma'am, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Nexari Federation," a third officer said. "Ambassador Kelvin wants to speak with President Hyunwoo directly." Back in Geneva, Hyunwoo took the call in his office. Ambassador Kelvin's small floating form appeared on the holographic display. "President Hyunwoo," Kelvin said formally, "the Nexari Federation wishes to discuss an alliance. We bring with us 37 other species who share our views." "What changed your mind?" Hyunwoo asked, though he suspected he knew. "Your message," Kelvin said. "But more than that, what happened after? Within hours of your transmission, We received communication from resistance movements on dozens of council worlds, movements we didn't know existed, all of them saying the same thing. They are tired of council rule. They want change, and they see humanity as the catalyst for that change. He paused. The council has maintained power through fear and tradition. You have shown that there is another way, a way where smaller species are not subject to the whims of larger ones, where sovereignty actually means something. The Nixari want to be part of that future. We welcome you, Hyunwoo said, but I need to be clear about something. Alliance with humanity means you will be targets. The council will not forgive this easily. We understand, Kelvin said, which is why we want to discuss your jump gate technology. 3 days later, Captain Jin Ho commanded the carrier group that arrived in Pellerin space. His flagship, the Dragon's Wing, was accompanied by 20 other vessels and 3 massive construction ships carrying jump gate components. Ambassador Silrath met them at the edge of her system. Captain Jin Ho, she said warmly. You are most welcome. Ambassador, Jin Ho replied. We're here to install your gate. Once it's operational, human reinforcements can reach you in seconds if you're attacked. The Vraxis will not be happy about this, Silrath said. The Vraxis are not happy about anything humans do, Jin Ho said with a smile. Let them complain. By the time they mobilize their fleet to attack you, we'll have 20 more gates installed across the galaxy. The construction ships went to work. Installing a jump gate was a massive undertaking. They had to create a stable spatial tunnel between 2 points in space. The technology was based on human theoretical physics developed over the last century, refined and perfected in secret. While the gates were being installed, something else was happening. Human engineers were working alongside Pellerin technicians sharing knowledge. Human military advisors were training Pellerin defense forces in tactics and strategy. Human doctors were exchanging medical knowledge with Pellerin healers. This was happening on dozens of worlds. Every species that allied with humanity received not just military protection, but genuine cooperation and knowledge exchange. The Council had ruled through fear and hierarchy. Humanity built relationships through mutual respect and shared benefit. On Corthan Prime, the homeworld of the militant species leading the Council's war effort, Engineer Youngsu's leaked weapons specifications were creating chaos. Factory workers who had been building Council warships were comparing human designs to what they were making. The human designs were better, more efficient, more powerful, and the specifications included a note. Your leaders use old designs because new ones threaten their power. They send you to die with inferior weapons. Ambassador Krathenix received reports of strikes and protests at 17 major shipyards, workers demanding better pay, better conditions, and answers about why their military was using outdated technology. He tried to suppress the information, but it was too late. The damage was done. How did the humans do this? He demanded of his intelligence officers. Sir, we don't know, one admitted. Our networks were supposed to be secure, but somehow they bypassed everything. It's like they understand our security better than we do. What the Corthan didn't know was that human computer science had evolved through decades of hackers, security experts, and cyber warfare. The Council's networks were sophisticated by their standards. By human standards, they were toys. Director Mira reviewed the latest intelligence reports with satisfaction. In 3 months, humanity had accomplished more through information warfare than the Council had accomplished in 300 years of traditional military dominance. Status report, she said to her team. 198 species have now withdrawn from the Council's military coalition, her deputy reported. 74 have formally allied with humanity. 20 more are in negotiations. The Council's planned fleet of 30,000 ships is down to about 18,000. And the gates? 23 installed and operational. Another 15 under construction. We can now reinforce any allied system within 90 seconds of an attack. Mira nodded. And the Council's response? Ambassador Krathenix is pushing for an immediate attack. He says they need to strike before they lose more support. But most of the Council wants to wait until their full fleet is assembled. They're arguing about it. Good, Mira said. Let them argue. Every day they waste arguing is another day we gain allies and install gates. By the time they finally move, they'll be facing a coalition, not just humanity. On Earth, Admiral Ye Jin oversaw the expansion of the human fleet. Humanity had faced the largest military force in known galactic history and won decisively. But the emergency session of the Galactic Council was nothing like the confident gathering that had condemned humanity 2 weeks ago. The grand chamber of Terminus Prime felt smaller somehow, darker, as if the weight of 800 dead ships pressed down on every delegate present. High Chancellor Threxmore was gone. Stripped of his position and rank, he had been sent back to Vraxis space in disgrace. In his place sat a temporary council of 5 senior delegates, none of whom wanted to be there. They all understood now. The humans had not been bluffing. The recordings played on every screen in the chamber. Battle footage from the Council fleet's surviving ships showed the full horror of what had happened. Delegates watched as their proud armada was torn apart by weapons they didn't understand, tactics they had never imagined, and a level of military precision that seemed impossible. We underestimated them, Ambassador Silrath of the Pelleran Union said quietly. She was a being made of something like crystal and light, and her voice sounded like wind chimes. Badly. They are savages, shouted Ambassador Grix of the Corthan Empire. He was a massive creature covered in armored plates evolved from predators. They fight without honor. They use tricks and deception. They won, Silrath said simply. Whether we like their methods or not, they defeated our fleet decisively. We lost 800 ships. They lost 43. The mathematics are clear. Then we send more ships. Grix slammed his appendage on his desk. The Council has over 50,000 vessels across all member species. We mobilize everything. We crush them with numbers they cannot possibly defeat. And lose how many this time? Asked Ambassador Kelvin of the Nixari Federation. He was a small floating creature, barely larger than a human child. His species had been in space for 30,000 years. 4,000? 8,000? Have any of you actually reviewed the human historical data they sent us? The chamber grew quiet. Many had reviewed it. Many wished they hadn't. I have spent 3 days studying human warfare, Kelvin continued. Do you know what I learned? These beings fought a war they called World War II. In 6 years, they killed 85 million of their own species. 85 million in 6 years. With primitive technology, and they didn't stop fighting. They kept going until one side was completely defeated. No negotiation. No surrender until the very end. They call it total war. He paused, letting that sink in. That was with technology that could barely reach their own moon. Now they have ships that can cross the galaxy. Now they have weapons that can shatter planets. And we just gave them a reason to use those weapons on us. We cannot simply accept their defiance. Grix roared. If we do not respond, every species in the Council will think they can refuse our authority. Perhaps they should be able to, Silrath said softly. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted at each other in hundreds of languages. The translation system struggled to keep up. Through the chaos, Silrath continued speaking, her voice calm and clear. The humans were right. They broke no laws. We punished them for making us uncomfortable, for being different, for refusing to bow to our traditional power structures. Maybe we need to examine whether those structures are just traitor. Grix pointed at her with one massive claw. The Pelleran will be sanctioned for. You will sanction no one, Silrath interrupted. Because I am not alone in thinking this. 3 hours ago, I spoke with 40 species who agree with me. We are withdrawing our support for any further military action against humanity. The chamber fell silent. 40 species. That was nearly 5% of the Council. If you do this, Grix said slowly, it will be seen as rebellion against Council authority. The consequences are what exactly? Silrath asked. Will you attack us? With what fleet? You just lost 800 ships to 400 humans. Do you really want to start a war with 40 species who have human sympathy? Because I promise you, Grix, the humans will not stay neutral if you attack their potential allies. On Earth, President Hyanwu met with his cabinet in the deep bunker beneath Geneva. The mood was cautiously optimistic. They had won the first battle. But everyone in the room knew the Council had more ships, more resources, and more experience in space warfare. Intelligence report, Hyanwu said, gesturing to Director Mira. Mira was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been running Earth's intelligence network for 15 years. The Council is fracturing, she said. Exactly as we hoped. 40 species have publicly withdrawn support for military action. Our analysis suggests another 100 are considering it but haven't announced yet. That's good, said General Seok-jin. He commanded Earth's ground forces, though everyone prayed those forces would never be needed. But the militant species still have tens of thousands of ships. If they decide to commit everything, then we need to make sure they never make that decision, Hyunwoo interrupted. Mira, tell them about Operation Fracture. Mira activated a holographic display. It showed the council structure, the various species, their relationships and dependencies. The council is not united, she explained. It never has been. The Vraxis and Korthan have dominated council politics for a century. Smaller species follow them out of fear, not loyalty. We exploit that. How? Asked General Seok-jin. We offer an alternative, Mira said. We can't defeat 50,000 ships. But we don't need to. We need to make sure those ships never launch. We do that by showing the smaller species that they have a choice. They can stay under Vrax's control or they can ally with humanity. And what do we offer them? Hyunwoo asked, though he already knew the answer. Everything the council does not, Mira said. Respect, equality, technology sharing, military protection. Most importantly, we offer them freedom. Freedom to govern themselves without council interference. Commander Da-eun, head of Earth's Special Operations, spoke up. She was young for her position, barely 30, but she had proven herself in operations across council space. My teams are ready. We have contacts on 40 council worlds. We can begin covert operations immediately. What kind of operations? Hyunwoo asked. Information warfare, Da-eun said. We expose council corruption. We broadcast footage of Vraxis leaders living in luxury while their soldiers die. We share manufacturing specifications for human weapons with species that are ready to defend themselves. We help organize resistance movements among species tired of council control. That's risky, General Seok-jin said. If we're caught, we're already at war, Da-eun said simply. The council made that clear when they sent 2,000 ships to attack Earth. We're just fighting it our way instead of their way. Hyunwoo was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. Do it, but Da-eun, listen carefully. We're fighting for freedom. That means we don't force anyone to join us. We offer, we help, we protect, but we don't conquer. Understood? Yes, sir, Da-eun said. One more thing, Hyunwoo said. Engineer Youngsu's team. How is Project Gateway coming? Youngsu appeared on a screen from his laboratory. He was covered in grease and looked like he hadn't slept in days, but he was grinning. It works, he said simply. We've tested it 17 times. The jump gate network is operational. Explain for those of us who aren't engineers, Hyunwoo said. Council species use faster-than-light drives, Youngsu explained. They're good. They can cross the galaxy in weeks or months. But they're slow compared to what we've built. Jump gates allow instantaneous travel between fixed points. We can move a fleet across the galaxy in seconds instead of weeks. The implications hit everyone in the room at the same moment. With jump gates, humanity could defend its allies anywhere in the galaxy. They could reinforce positions instantly. They could respond to threats before the council could even mobilize. How many gates do we have? Hyunwoo asked. 12 operational, Youngsu said. We can manufacture more, but each one takes 3 months to build and a week to install. I recommend we prioritize installation in the systems of species that ally with us. Do it, Hyunwoo ordered. Offer gates to any species that allies with humanity. Free of charge, but make it clear those gates will be used to defend them if they're attacked. Back on Terminus Prime, the council session had devolved into chaos. Species were shouting at each other. Some were threatening to leave the council entirely. Others were calling for immediate military action against humanity and anyone who supported them. Ambassador Krathnix of the Korthan Empire finally stood. He was larger than even Grix, covered in black armored plates that seemed to absorb light. When he spoke, his voice was cold and calculated. Enough, he said, and somehow his quiet voice cut through the noise. The council is embarrassing itself. We are acting like frightened children instead of the governing body of the galaxy. He looked around the chamber. Yes, we underestimated the humans. Yes, we lost ships, but we are still the council. We still have the largest military force in galactic history. I propose we end this debate with a simple demonstration of power. What kind of demonstration? Silrath asked carefully. We assemble a fleet, Krathnix said. Not 2,000 ships. Not 5,000. 30,000 ships. The largest military fleet ever gathered. We take this fleet to Earth. We blockade their system completely. We cut off all trade, all communal. The council fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system in a sight that should have inspired awe and terror. 2,000 warships arranged in perfect geometric formations, their hulls gleaming in the distant light of the sun. Commodore Threksmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Endless Victory, and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he ordered. His communications officer worked the controls. On the view screen, a middle-aged human woman appeared. She wore a crisp military uniform and her expression was completely neutral. The nameplate identified her as Admiral Yejin, commander of the Human Defensive Fleet. "I am Commodore Threksmore of the Vraxis Armada, commanding the Joint Council Fleet," he announced. "We are here to enforce the Council's judgment. You will stand down immediately and prepare to receive boarding parties. Earth will surrender all military vessels and accept Council governance. You have 1 hour to comply." Admiral Yejin studied him for a moment before responding. "Commodore, before we continue, I have a question. Have you studied human history?" Threksmore was surprised by the question. "Your history is irrelevant. You have 1 hour. I'll take that as a no," Yejin said calmly. "Let me educate you. Humans have been at war for our entire existence. We have fought over land, resources, ideas, and sometimes just because we didn't like how someone looked at us. We have developed thousands of different fighting styles. We have built and destroyed empires. We have killed billions of our own species before we finally learned to mostly stop killing each other. Do you know what that means, Commodore?" "It means you are barbaric," Threksmore said coldly. "It means we are very, very good at war," Yejin corrected. "You have 2,000 ships. That's impressive, but I want you to understand something. Every human commander in this system has studied military history since they were children. We learn about Hannibal and Caesar. We study Napoleon and Genghis Khan. We analyze World War I and II. We don't fight wars occasionally. We are descended from people who survived thousands of years of constant warfare. This is what we are," she leaned forward. "I'm transmitting a data package to your fleet. It contains our complete military history. Read it. You still have 58 minutes. The transmission ended." Threksmore stared at the blank screen for a moment, then gestured to his intelligence officer. "Analyze this data package." The officer worked quickly. As files began appearing on screens around the bridge, a horrified silence fell over the crew. Battle after battle, war after war, casualty figures that seemed impossible. Entire cities destroyed, millions dead in single battles. Weapons that made modern military technology look gentle. "This cannot be accurate," one officer whispered. "No species could survive this." "They not only survived," the intelligence officer said quietly. "They thrived. Commodore, every major technological advancement in human history came during or after a major war. They evolved through conflict. And sir, these wars were fought with primitive technology. Their current capabilities are likely far beyond what we're seeing in this historical data." Threksmore felt a cold sensation in his stomach, but he pushed it away. "It doesn't matter. They are still outnumbered 5-1. All ships advance to battle formation. We will demonstrate the cost of defying the Council." The Council fleet moved forward. The 400 human ships scattered immediately, breaking into smaller groups that accelerated in different directions. To the Council commanders, it looked like panic. "The humans were fleeing. They run!" Threksmore announced triumphantly. "All ships pursue. Do not let them escape the system." That was when the asteroid belt opened fire. What the Council had believed were simple mining stations suddenly revealed their true nature. Massive railguns emerged from hidden bays. Missile batteries that had been disguised as ore processors launched salvo after salvo. Directed energy weapons powerful enough to cut a ship in half fired in perfect synchronization. In the first 60 seconds, 200 Council ships simply ceased to exist. They were torn apart by weapons operating on principles that Council military science said were impractical or impossible to build. The pretty geometric formations became clouds of debris and dying ships. "Evasive action," Threksmore screamed. "Return fire on those stations." But the human ships were no longer running. They had circled around and were now attacking from unexpected angles. Their weapons were terrifyingly efficient. A human destroyer would appear from behind an asteroid, fire a spread of missiles that somehow bypass shields, and disappear before return fire could lock on. A human cruiser would use a moon's gravity to slingshot itself into point-blank range, unleash every weapon it had, then accelerate away at speeds that should have crushed the crew. The battle became a nightmare. Human forces didn't fight the way civilized species fought. There were no honorable duels, no clean lines of battle. They used asteroids as weapons, accelerating them with hidden mass drivers and sending them crashing into council ships. They detonated nuclear mines and debris fields. They broadcast false sensor signals that sent council ships crashing into each other. Admiral Yejin commanded from the bridge of the Indomitable, her voice calm as she issued orders. Group 3, execute pattern Delta 7. Group 5, set up the crossfire at Jupiter's L4 point. Group 8, fall back and draw them into Taeyang's kill zone. Every order was executed with perfect precision. These were not untrained barbarians. These were professional soldiers conducting operations they had drilled thousands of times. The asteroid belt was their terrain. They knew every rock, every hiding spot, every angle of fire. Admiral Taeyang watched from his command center deep in the asteroid belt. His weapons grid had been built over 20 years, piece by piece, disguised as civilian infrastructure. Now it was revealed in all its terrible glory. Railguns that could punch through any shield known to Council science. Missiles with warheads that split into hundreds of submunitions. Laser arrays powerful enough to boil away a ship's hull. Battery 7, fire, he ordered calmly. Battery 3, target the dreadnought at coordinates 479er. Wait for the cruiser to clear our line of fire. Battery 12, they're trying to flank us from above. Show them why that's a mistake. The Council fleet tried to adapt. They tried to form defensive formations. But the humans had an answer for everything. When the Council ships grouped together for mutual protection, the humans launched torpedoes that created electromagnetic pulses, shutting down entire sections of the fleet. When the Council tried to spread out, the humans picked them off one by one. Commodore Threxmore watched his fleet die around him. His tactical officer was shouting numbers that made no sense. They had lost 800 ships. The humans had lost 43 against 2,000. How? He whispered.
How is this possible?
Sir, they're using tactics we've never seen, his tactical officer said. They sacrifice unmanned drones to create debris fields. They use their own destroyed ships as cover. They're not fighting to look good. They're fighting to win. On the Indomitable, a young human officer named Sung Ho monitored the battle from his station. He had studied the Battle of Thermopylae as a cadet. He had written papers on Stalingrad. He understood something the Council species did not. Humans had learned long ago that war was not about honor or glory. It was about survival, and humans were very good at surviving. Admiral, they're trying to retreat, he reported. Yejin nodded. Let the small ships go. Concentrate fire on anything cruiser class or larger, and get me a line to the enemy flagship. A moment later, Threxmore's face appeared on her screen. He looked nothing like the confident commander from an hour ago. His eyes were wide with shock and fear. Are you ready to negotiate now, Commodore? Yejin asked. You're animals, Threxmore stammered. Monsters. You fight without honor. We fight to protect our home, Yejin said simply. You brought 2,000 ships to threaten my planet. Did you think we would line up politely and die for your convenience? This is what war looks like, Commodore, real war, not the neat little border disputes your council has been managing for 300 years. This is what happens when you threaten a species that has been perfecting the art of killing for 10,000 years. We surrender, Threxmore said quietly. No, Yejin replied. Surrender requires negotiation, and my government has declined to negotiate under threat. What you will do is run back to your council. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity gave them a chance to walk away peacefully, and they chose to attack instead. Tell them that we have 400 ships in this system, and tell them that we have 4,000 more under construction. She leaned forward. And Commodore? Tell them that if they want to try again, next time we won't be so gentle. We let your small ships retreat. Next time we'll let nothing leave alive. Now get out of my star system. The transmission ended. The surviving council ships, barely 1,200 of the original 2,000, jumped to faster-than-light speed in complete disorder. Some fled toward council space. Others simply jumped in random directions, desperate to escape. On Earth, billions of people watched the battle through live feeds. When the council fleet finally broke and ran, celebrations erupted in every city. Admiral Yejin sat in her ready room aboard the UES Indomitable when the message came through. The holographic display showed a simple set of orders from Earth Command. All human vessels were to withdraw from Council space immediately. No explanation. No timeline for return. Just get out and get out now. She had expected this. The moment Daiwan had walked out of that council chamber 3 days ago, she had known what was coming. She had already started preparing her crew. Helm, she spoke into her communicator. Set course for the Alpha Centauri gate. Maximum speed. Signal the rest of the fleet. We're going home. Yes, Admiral, came the reply. Yejin stood and walked to the large window that looked out into space. Her ship was beautiful. 300 meters of human engineering, built in the orbital shipyards above Earth. She had commanded the Indomitable for 5 years. In that time, they had explored 40 new systems, made first contact with 3 species, and never fired a shot in anger. That was about to change. Her communication officer's voice crackled through. Admiral, we're receiving multiple transmissions from council ships. They're demanding to know why we're leaving. Ignore them, Yejin said. We have our orders. She thought about what would happen next. The council would see the human withdrawal and think it was fear. They would believe humanity was running away with their tail between their legs. They would make assumptions based on their own experiences. That was their first mistake. Across council space, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships disengaged from joint patrols. Human diplomats closed their embassies. Human trade vessels left council stations. Within 6 hours, every single human presence in council territory was gone. On Terminus Prime, High Chancellor Threxmore watched the reports with satisfaction. See, he said to his advisors. They are cowards. They bark loud, but when faced with real consequences, they run. Perhaps we should reconsider, Chancellor. One of his advisors said carefully. The humans did nothing illegal. Perhaps we could— Silence. Threxmore slammed his primary hand on the desk. The humans embarrassed me. They embarrassed this council. They must be taught a lesson. How many ships can we gather? For a punitive expedition? The military advisor asked. 2,000, perhaps more. We have commitments from 47 species. 2,000 ships, Threxmore repeated, his eyes glowing with satisfaction. Against what? 400 human vessels. Send them. Blockade Earth and their colonies. Cut off their trade. Let them sit in isolation until they beg to accept our terms, and if they fight? The advisor asked quietly. Threxmore laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. They are children, barely 350 years in space. We have species in this council who have been traveling the stars for 50,000 years. What can humans possibly do against us? The advisor did not answer. He had reviewed the human data packages that Daiwan had transmitted to council archives. He had read about something called the World Wars. He had seen casualty numbers that made his stomach turn. But the Chancellor did not want to hear warnings. He wanted validation. I will lead the fleet myself, Threxmore decided. No, wait. Give command to Commodore Threxmore of the Vraxis Armada. Let him have the glory of breaking the humans. Back on Earth, President Hyunwoo stood before the United Earth government. The chamber was built deep underground beneath what used to be called Geneva. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in curved rows, their faces serious. The council has made its choice, Hyunwoo said. His voice was tired but firm. Our intelligence reports indicate they are assembling a fleet. 2,000 ships. They will arrive at Earth in approximately 17 days. Murmurs ran through the chamber. 2,000 ships. Even the most optimistic human strategists had not expected such a large force. However, Hyunwoo continued, this is not unexpected. We have been preparing for this possibility since first contact. Project Fortress is complete. The solar defense grid is active. Our fleet is ready. And our allies among the smaller council species have been contacted. Some are willing to share intelligence, Mr. President. One representative stood. 2,000 ships against 400. Those are not good odds. No, Hyunwoo agreed. They're not. But they're assuming we'll fight the way they fight. Line up our ships against their ships. Exchange fire until one side breaks. That's how civilized species conduct warfare. He smiled, but it was not a happy smile. We're not civilized. Not by their standards. We've been fighting wars since before we could write. We've had 10,000 years to perfect the art of killing each other. We nearly destroyed our own planet 3 times before we finally figured out how to work together. Every human alive today is descended from people who survived countless wars, plagues, and disasters. We are, by galactic standards, absolutely insane. The chamber was quiet. Every person there knew their history. They knew what humanity was capable of when threatened. The council thinks we withdrew out of fear, Hyunwoo continued. Let them think that. Let them come to Earth confident and careless. And then we will show them why no one in human history has ever successfully conquered Earth from the outside. Are we really going to war? Another representative asked. They are bringing war to us, Hyunwoo corrected. We are simply going to defend ourselves. The vote is simple. Do we submit to the Council's demands or do we stand and fight? The vote took less than 5 minutes. It was unanimous. Every nation, every representative, Earth would stand. In deep space, far beyond the edge of Council territory, Captain Ji-won floated in the darkness. Her ship, the Shadow Wing, was built for stealth. It had no weapons to speak of. Its hull absorbed sensor scans. Its engines ran cold. It was invisible. She had been watching the Council fleet assemble for 3 days now. 2,000 ships from dozens of different species. Some were massive dreadnoughts that could crack a planet. Others were smaller cruisers and destroyers. They gathered in formations that looked impressive, but were tactically inefficient. Pretty, but not practical. Captain? Her sensor officer whispered, even though there was no need to whisper in the sealed ship. They're starting final preparations. Looks like they'll move within the next 6 hours. Good, Ji-won said. Get me exact fleet composition, command structure, and formation patterns. Earth Command needs to know exactly what's coming. She watched the massive fleet through her view screen. They were so confident, so sure of their superiority. She had reviewed Council military history during her 3 days of observation. In 300 years of Council rule, there had been exactly 12 military conflicts. All of them had been short. All of them had ended in negotiated surrenders. The Council had no idea what real war looked like. They were about to learn. Ji-won finished her report and transmitted it back to Earth via the quantum relay. The data package was massive. Ship classes, weapon types, shield frequencies, everything Earth Command would need. Then she added a personal note at the end. They're coming and they think they've already won. Show them why that's a mistake. She set a course to follow the fleet at a safe distance. Her job was to watch and report. But part of her wished she could be on one of the defense ships when the Council arrived. She wanted to see their faces when Earth showed them what humanity had really been building for the last 50 years. The countdown had begun. 17 days until the Council fleet reached Earth. 17 days for humanity to prepare for the biggest battle in their history, and somewhere deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Admiral Tae-yang powered up the weapon systems that no Council species knew existed. Mining stations, they had called them. Just human efficiency at work, extracting resources from the asteroid belt. No one had looked close enough to see the railguns. No one had noticed the missile batteries. No one had realized that every mining station was actually a fortress. Defensive grid online, Tae-yang reported to Earth Command. We're ready. The grand chamber of Terminus Prime stretched out like a massive cathedral in space. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the seats, their bodies ranging from small floating creatures to massive beings that needed special platforms. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to convert thousands of different languages into something everyone could understand. Ambassador Dae-won stood in the center spotlight. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many difficult negotiations. His dark blue uniform carried the symbol of Earth, a small blue marble that most species in this room had barely heard of 50 years ago. Around him the delegates whispered and pointed. Some made sounds that his translator couldn't quite capture, but he understood their meaning. They were not happy. High Chancellor Threxmore rose from his seat at the highest point in the chamber. He was a Vraxus, a species that looked like a cross between a mantis and a bear, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red when he was angry. Right now they were glowing very bright. Ambassador Dae-won of Earth. Threxmore's voice boomed through the chamber. The Galactic Council has reached its decision. Your species has been found guilty of aggressive expansion into territories claimed by Council members. You have built colonies in 14 systems without proper authorization. You have refused to limit your military growth. You have rejected our guidance at every turn. Dae-won said nothing. He simply stood there, his hands clasped behind his back, watching the Chancellor with those calm eyes. The Council has voted. Threxmore continued. 846 species have agreed. Only Earth stands against this judgment. You will surrender 40% of your military fleet immediately. You will accept Council oversight of all human colonies. You will pay reparations of 10 trillion credits for your violations, and you will limit your future expansion to systems approved by this council. The chamber erupted in sounds of agreement. Delegates from hundreds of worlds made their species-specific sounds of approval. Some banged their appendages on their desks, others released clouds of colored gas. A few simply stood and waved their support. Daewon waited for the noise to die down. It took several minutes. When silence finally returned, he spoke for the first time. "May I ask a question, Chancellor?" Threxmore made a gesture that the translator called dismissive agreement. It meant yes, but barely. Which laws did humanity break? Daewon asked. "I just explained—" Threxmore began. "No." Daewon interrupted, his voice still perfectly calm. "You explained what you want us to do. I asked which laws we broke. The 14 systems we colonized were empty. No life, no claims filed with the Council Registry. We checked. We followed every procedure. We built those colonies with our own ships, our own resources, our own people who left Earth to make new homes. The Vraxis Collective claims traditional rights to—" Threxmore started again. "Traditional rights are not laws," Daewon said. "We joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago. We received a copy of all Council laws and regulations. My legal team has reviewed every single one. We have broken 0 laws. Not one." The chamber grew quieter. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Your military expansion threatens," another delegate shouted from the crowd. "Our military is for defense," Daewon replied. "Show me the law that limits defensive capabilities." "We have attacked no one. We have threatened no one. We have exactly as many ships as we feel we need to protect our people. This council has maintained peace for 300 years. Threxmore's voice rose to a roar. "We do so through cooperation and compromise. Every species that joins us agrees to follow our guidance. You are newcomers. You are young. You must learn your place." Daewon was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the massive chamber. "We did not ask to join your council, Chancellor. You invited us. You came to Earth with smiles and promises of friendship. You said we would have the same rights as any other species. You said we would be equals. But now I see the truth. You want subjects, not equals. You want us to bow to you just because you've been in space longer than we have." "How dare you?" Threxmore began. "I am not finished." Daewon's voice didn't rise, but something in it made the Chancellor stop talking. "You have 846 species in this council. You have been negotiating and compromising for 300 years. That's wonderful. Truly. But humanity has been negotiating with each other for 10,000 years. We know what real negotiation looks like. This is not negotiation. This is an ultimatum. You threaten us with punishment for crimes we did not commit. You demand we give up our freedom because we make you uncomfortable. You want us to surrender our ability to defend ourselves so you can control us more easily." The chamber was completely silent now. Every delegate was focused on the human standing alone in the spotlight. "So let me be very clear," Daewon said. "Humanity declines your ultimatum. We will not surrender our ships. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not pay for crimes we did not commit. And we will not accept oversight from a council that has already proven it does not respect our sovereignty." "You refuse?" Threxmore could barely speak. His voice shook with rage. "You refuse the judgment of this council?" "We decline to negotiate under threat," Daewon said simply. "If you wish to discuss trade agreements, cultural exchanges, or genuine cooperation between equals, we will happily talk. But if you want to threaten us into submission, then there is nothing to discuss where there will be consequences." Threxmore roared. "I'm sure there will be," Daewon said. He turned and began walking toward the exit. "Good day, gentlemen. We will impose sanctions. We will blockade your systems. We will—" Daewon stopped and looked back over his shoulder. "Chancellor, humanity has a saying. Perhaps your translator can help you understand it. Don't start a fight you're not prepared to finish." He walked out. The doors closed behind him with a soft hiss. For 3 seconds, the chamber was silent. Then it exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for sanctions and blockades. A few stood and called for calm and further discussion, but their voices were drowned out. High Chancellor Threxmore stood at his podium, his eyes glowing brighter than anyone had ever seen them. He had ruled the Vraxis Collective for 40 years. He had negotiated the membership of 30 species into the council. No one had ever refused him before. Prepare the fleets, he said quietly to his aide. The humans will learn their place. Far away on his shuttle back to the human embassy, Ambassador Daewon sat in his chair and closed his eyes. He had hoped it would not come to this. He had genuinely wanted peace. But he had learned long ago that some people only understand one language. He opened his communicator and sent a single encrypted message back to Earth. It was only 3 words long. They chose war.